Hello everyone, I am back with part 2 because I showed the first video to my girlfriend and she reminded me about some juicy stuff that I have left out of my previous video. Maybe juicy is not the right word, but I figured it would be things that you people need to know also about my last workplace, what happened there. So there were a few weird incidents while working there that also made me question whether I want to remain there or not. For example, as getting older, I tend to not care very much about smaller things in life. I care about family, friends, pets, health, important things in one word. Not so much about the little things, especially, I don't have any money or anything, but especially when they don't really cost a lot. When I was working there, of course, I had a desk as an IT guy. And after like 2 years, this guy notices that there were some, I guess, pen marks, like very, very little, very, very small holes, probably not even holes, not deep at all in the desk, like 2 or 3 or something like that. Mind you, those could have been there before because I was not the first employee here. This company, had many, many years of running before I arrived there. So one day this guy sees those holes and he starts really going mad about it. Like, how dare you do that to my desk? You should pay it. I actually don't remember if he said I should pay it, but probably he wasn't far from that. He was very upset. I tried to say the same thing I told you just now, that, those could have been there for a long time and, we work. So things get used, of course, they get, how should I put it? They break. That was not broken, but they do get, they break. Of course, I'm all for taking care of your stuff or of the stuff at the office, of course. I'm not saying go smash any desk or something like that. But these things happen. That was really not a big deal. But he went very aggressive about it. I think his partner was there also, and I never really understood why his partner was there. I mean, that person never really did any work or anything, just sat there. From when we started work until when we finished work, this guy's partner was there all the time, not doing anything productive, just sitting on the computer. And of course, it's their choice. Got no issue with that. But it was just very weird, very dynamic. Like sometimes it felt like this boss was trying to puff up his chest and seem much more aggressive and dominating than he really ever was. Just because his partner was there, his partner would throw him looks that, how can you let Stefanovsky answer like this or like that to you, your boss? In the last incident, this partner she again said something stupid, in my opinion. I don't know, she just commented something about it, of course she did. That's actually diving into the second thing that, his partner, after some time of working there, more than a year, his partner starting coming there all the time without really doing anything. It was really a hindrance. Any new person in a group changes the dynamic. All of a sudden, we couldn't really talk, or I couldn't really talk that much freely or express my opinions, or even, conflict is sometimes necessary in life, okay? Sometimes you need to have discussions that are unpleasant in order to solve a conflict. That's not really an issue. But being there, but having someone like that there, in my opinion, it just created more conflict, but not the type of conflict that solves the issue and we can all move forward from it, but just a necessary conflict. It was really strange. It made it harder to actually do my job. Another thing I like to mention is that this guy was insane when it came to getting your free days. Again, your free days, it depends where you are in. If you live in Europe like I do, you have a certain number of free days guaranteed by the government. I'm assuming that is the case in most developed places. I don't know how it is in the USA or in Asia, but I'm assuming it's like that. Okay. And like in any other workplace, you have to request a number of days that gets accepted and then you can go on your holiday. All right. This guy was very adamant about me working on my free days, not necessarily the ones paid, because then usually I would go on some holiday and in some other country maybe, or in another city, so it was harder to work there. But we also in Europe, I'm again assuming that's the case in most of the world, have other type of free days, certain holidays throughout the year that if the day of the holiday happens to be on a work day, then that day it's free for most people. It's free for all public workers. I think that's a guaranteed, or most of them, of course, police or anything like that. That's different. And it's usually free for all private workers, like I was. If a private entity asks you to work on that day, like if you work in customer service and the business has to keep running even on that day, they will usually give you something for it, or they would ask you if you want it. If you don't want it, that's fine. But if you do, they will usually pay you extra, usually double, maybe even more than that. Well, this guy wouldn't do that. He wanted me to work on those days. He said that he'd pay me more for it. I don't really remember that he did that. Maybe he did pay me a little more for it. And I was in dire need of money, so I did that. But he wouldn't work like that. He would give me a task. He had no clue how long the task was. He would make it seem like it doesn't take a long time. That's easy to do. You know, you got this task. You can do it easily in like 2 hours, right? I not really knowing what the code base was like, the code base that he wrote, by the way, with his previous employees, I would see, okay, then if it takes, I would do the math in my head. Okay, if it takes like only 2 hours and he pays me this much, then it's worth it. Well, the stupid task would take much longer than that because that code base was a mess. He would then gaslight me when I would bring that up. Like if I would work on that stuff so long, and he would try to gaslight me that I didn't do it as fast as he said I would because I'm not skilled enough, you know, or because I didn't try, or because I didn't actually work as long as I did I'd work. Again, my fault for accepting this sort of stuff. I shouldn't have. I really shouldn't have. But I was in need of money, and he knew it. He certainly knew it. That's another thing. And again, this would be, I think, the last thing I'm going to say. I need to keep this video shorter. Before leaving there, I planned a holiday for a month in another country. The first time I ever did that. I've been working for years and years until that point. So I was like, okay, you know, everything became a routine. So why don't I do something different and I go to another country, a faraway country from here, you know, in Asia. And I negotiated, quote unquote, with this guy to have all my free days, or most of them, during that time. The 3 days that are owed to me again by the virtue of the state we're in. That's the rules. He agreed. I let him know a long time in advance, like more than a year or like 9 months or something like that. So it didn't come as a surprise to the guy. But then I realized, wait, if I do that and then I leave, because I was planning to leave soon after returning back from holiday, it wouldn't really work out because I found like some information online that he can then basically cut my paycheck for those days anyway, so I wouldn't really gain anything. I would just be stressed out on holiday. Fair enough. So I decided to quit before the holiday. The reason I quit was a very minor one. He wanted me to sign a non-disclosure agreement, but I found that agreement so strange. It had some very strange rules, and I'm not a legal person. Even if you can, here in Europe, even if you put like strange clauses in a contract or a non-NDA, it doesn't really matter. You can write whatever you want, but if the law doesn't permit it in the country or in the European Union, then those clauses are illegal, are irrelevant. I'm not sure how it is in other parts of the world. I heard like in the USA, you can put anything you want, really. And if that's the case, pretty weird. But whatever. I'm digressing. I took the time to read that non-disclosure agreement. I took like a weekend, and that got this guy very upset that I didn't just read it first and then sign it like some of my co-workers did. This guy was so upset about it, again, that I wouldn't sign it. He thought I was going to steal his code. That code, guys, in my opinion, okay, the code that was written there, it's really, really not worth stealing, even if I were to, which I was not. I have not, and I would never steal code from my workplace. That's just disgusting. Not just legally, but morally speaking, it's disgusting. I would never do that in my life. At the end, I said that I was going to resign. That was like the last. It just happened for me to be the last straw. He got again really defensive and really aggressive about that stupid NDA that I was like, okay, you know what? I think it's time. And I resigned. But again, here you have to like give your notice 1 month in advance or a few weeks. I don't know, depends on the workplace. So I stayed there another month, I think, or another 2 weeks. I'm not sure. can't really remember. And just demonstrate to this guy that I really don't care about his stupid code nonsense to me, I signed that. There were other clauses there that seemed a bit strange, but in the hindsight, they, don't really matter. They really don't. And some of them I think were illegal anyway. Like, I think was something like not being allowed to work in the same sort of business as the company was operating in, which is insane. That's not how it works. Like, let's say if they work for for a clothing brand, then what, you are not allowed to work for any other clothing brand for like 10 years. Doesn't work like that. Not here anyway. Anyway, I signed it. Maybe I should. Thinking about it now, I shouldn't have. There was no point in giving him that, really. And he told me that he was going to fire me anyway after I quit. Yeah, he was going to fire me anyway. Like, he said that after I would have come back from the holiday, he would have kept me around for like 1 month or something like that, and then he would have fired me because, in his humble opinion, there was no place for me there anymore. You got that right, brother. You got that right. This way of having the last word, or so he thought, I guess, it's just so childish, so childish. And I'm glad I left. I should have left much sooner. Okay, that's it from me. If you got any questions, comments, whatever, feel free to drop them in the comments. You can contact me by email if you'd like. I should make that Discord server at some point. If you got any questions, whatever, feel free to ask me. I like talking with people. I like hearing opinions. I may be wrong about much of the stuff I'm saying, or I may be wrong about the way I see things. Maybe you guys know better. Who knows? Let me know. Bye.